Here's a story about the biggest mistake I ever made and why it's important to release your power and energy by fully being yourself. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, transformational life coach, channel, and author. And today I'm going to share with you a story about the biggest mistake I ever made when I decided it would be better to be something other than myself. Now, we hear all the time about how important it is to be authentic and be yourself. But we may not always realize how completely significant that really is when it comes to living a purposeful life and fully expressing who you really are, allowing your energy to flow and tapping into your true, magnificent power of yourself as an infinite being of light. And my hope is that by sharing my story with you, that I will inspire you to look within yourself, to look at your own life and see if maybe there's some areas in your life that you might need to change. And it might also help you discover where you've been having difficulty at making those positive changes you've wanted to make and what you can do about it. So I am a walk-in and a full body channel. And I've been working with a group of interdimensional extraterrestrial beings for many, many years. Now, if you don't know what a walk-in is, I'll give you a brief explanation because it has to do with my story and the big mistake that I want to share with you guys. Basically, the simplest way to explain this is, generally speaking, on planet Earth, we have a certain lifespan, right? From birth to the end of that typical lifespan, which is old age or death. Now, typically, a person enters at birth and they live the whole lifespan up until old age, at which point the body perishes in some fashion and the person goes on to their next adventure. However, there are many cases, as we all know, where a person will depart at any age at all. Some people depart 3 hours after they're born, some people when they're 5 years old, every single age. So everybody that enters this planet and incarnates has their own purpose, whatever it is they want to achieve or accomplish in that given lifetime, which might end at any period of time. Now, most people will follow through the entire typical human lifespan. Now, a walk-in situation is rare. It's something that is decided well in advance. Some might call it a soul contract between beings. It's very purposeful. It's not by accident. What happens in a walk-in scenario is a person enters at birth in the normal way. And let's say that person was only intending to live their life through a much younger age. Let's say partway into adulthood. And then they would be ready to depart. They would have completed their purpose here, their mission, whatever they were here to learn, to do, or to experience. So they will depart at whatever time they had planned to. However, the body is not destroyed because there was a prior agreement prior to their birth that someone else would enter in at that moment and live through that physical vehicle with a very different purpose in mind. So it's almost like you're sharing that span of life. One person lives through the beginning and the second person lives through the second part. Being a walk-in, I was the person that came in for the second part. Now, I came in fully conscious, remembering who I am. And I want to add too, and I'll do another video about this because there was a lot of preparation that went into that, because generally speaking, when people are born on this earth, you just forget who you are. That's why we have to talk about it so much, because it's not an easy thing to remember who you are as an infinite being and have that be real for you, as opposed to just a theory, a philosophy, or just a spiritual idea. So coming in with full memory, that was a whole different situation. Because when I came in, I wasn't confused about what had happened. I was really clear. But here's what happened, and this is the beginning of the first time I made this mistake, because I made this mistake twice. Now, bear in mind, my story is really extreme, as you can tell. I'm certain yours is not this extreme, which is why I'm hoping that you will feel somewhat inspired in your own life, because you'll realize, well, gosh, if Saratoga can deal with it under those crazy conditions, maybe my situation doesn't have to be as difficult as I thought. So here I am in this situation, and the first thing that comes to mind, because I've come into circumstances, an entire situation of relationships, people, everything that were put together by somebody else. And I decided to myself, you know what? It's probably better if I don't say anything. If I just be quiet, don't say anything about what happened here, because I don't want to upset people. I don't want to rock the boat. People are going to think this is completely weird. So I decided it would be best to just leave well enough alone, pretend that nothing had changed, nothing had happened, and therefore everybody could be fine and I wouldn't rock the boat or make any waves. It's because my profession was channeling at the time, I figured, you know what, I can just kind of hide behind, I'm the channeler, I don't really have to say very much, it doesn't have to come from me. But here's the problem. I knew that I was here to communicate something myself, that I was here with a purpose. I mean, you don't do something like this just for no reason, just to hide, right? So I was really torn. It was very, very difficult. It was a really hard situation. So I went on like this for an entire year. And what happened is the pressure to be myself just became greater and greater and more painful, because I had to so completely repress myself to avoid letting on anything about who I am or why I'm here, and just keep hiding just to keep everybody happy. So here's what happened. Because it was so difficult to live that way, I told a couple of people privately what had happened, and I was absolutely terrified, honestly. I really was, because I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to totally freak out. And you know what happened? They didn't freak out. You know what they said? They said, oh, I'm so glad you told me. I'm so relieved. And they said, I knew it. Their first reaction was really weird. It was like, I knew it. I knew it. I'm so happy you told me. And this is a huge relief. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. It kind of started to dawn on me that maybe people actually do want to know who you really are, regardless of the circumstances. But anyway, I still didn't have the courage to really come out with the truth and just be me, be myself, because it seemed so outlandish, right? So I moved to another state where I didn't know anyone and no one knew me. So I said to myself, okay, this is my opportunity to really right this situation. Because you see, I really hadn't righted it just by telling one or two people in secret and don't tell anyone. That's what I said to them. Don't tell anybody this happened. So that's not really fixing anything really, right? So anyway, I make a new friend, and right away I start off on the same bad foot with her. And I got to the point where I said to myself, you know what? I feel like I'm not even telling the truth. I feel like I'm almost lying by default. So I called her up and I said, would you come over to my house? I have something I need to talk to you about. She came over, and I said, I have to tell you this because I feel like by not saying anything, I'm implying something about myself that really isn't the truth. So I told her the whole story, and as before, I was incredibly afraid to do so. But you know what? It was no big deal. She was like, oh, that's great. I'm so glad you told me. So by now I'm thinking, this is interesting. Here I was so afraid of this, and so far, no one's had a problem. Well, then the big turning point came, because at that time, I had scheduled a major intensive. This was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'd scheduled a major intensive, and a whole bunch of people were flying in from the East Coast to be a part of this intensive, which was partly channeled. And here's the key. I was supposed to do an entire day of that intensive myself. Okay, so I'm thinking, wait a second. I can't say what I know I have to say. I can't share the knowledge that I have. I can't share what needs to be shared, what needs to be contributed, and still pretend that nothing happened, because the lifetime prior to mine, there's no way that person could know the things that I knew. And all these people were coming who knew me back there, but still didn't know what had happened. I was like, oh my gosh, how can I get around this? Is there some way I can avoid this? Well, there was no way. I knew there was no way. I was going to have to tell this whole group of people what had happened so that I would be able to unleash myself and what I came here to contribute. They all flew in, and we had an orientation meeting on the Friday night before, and that was when I knew I was going to have to share this with a whole group of people, something I had never done before. And again, I was really afraid because I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. I did it. I shared my story. I was completely nervous. You know what? The same reaction. Oh, wow, I'm so glad you told us. That's amazing. And it was all very positive. That was the turning point. So what I learned from that mistake was, without being myself fully, without coming forward with who I really am, honestly and unabashedly, I was repressed. I could not express what I had to express. I couldn't contribute what I was here to contribute, and I had to take the lid off of that. I'll just call it a lie by default, a lie by not telling the truth about myself in order to contribute and live my purpose. Now, after that turning point, my whole life changed. It was like this energy got unleashed, amazing things started to happen, incredible events started to happen. It was a total transformation, and it was completely positive. I don't know if you can see that simple pivot to having the courage to express the truth about myself, as outlandish as it was, and maybe is still to certain people, allowed me to be free of the self-imposed bondage of pretending to be somebody I was not. Now, from there, I started traveling. I traveled all over North America. I held events in different cities. I shared my story publicly, all over the place. And it was always great. It was awesome. And then here's mistake number 2. This is where I made the same mistake a second time, but in a much bigger way. So what happened then is I got married. I had 2 beautiful children. And everything was great as long as my children were babies and really little. But if you have kids, you know there's a point where your kids start to be more socialized and they're interacting with other children. And I, the parent, I, the mom, was spending more and more time with other parents. In that situation, I was not necessarily with like-minded people, right? And all I could think of was, you know what? I don't want my children to have to deal with all the metaphysical stuff, everything that I was doing as my profession. Now, I'm not saying this was a good idea, but this was just my crazy notion again, that it would be a good idea to keep this part of my life quiet when I was around all of these other parents in all these different settings. I think a lot of people can relate to this in maybe a different way, because, you know, maybe you have a situation where you have a job, or you have certain relationships or friendships where you feel like you can't really be yourself. You have to pretend to be a different person. And then maybe over here, you feel like you're really free to be yourself, and you end up with this split in your life. And that's what I did to myself. I created a split within myself. So I said, over here, I'm just going to pretend I'm just a regular old person. I'm not really doing anything special. I'm just a mom. I'm raising my kids. And then over here, I have this profession where I'm a channeler. I'm doing all the same stuff I was doing before. I did that for quite a while. But here's the problem with that faulty plan that I came up with, okay? Even though my kids reached an age where it really wasn't necessary, maybe it was never necessary, I don't know, but in my own mind, let's say it wasn't necessary to continue dividing myself in that way, I created such a pattern within me that I couldn't stop. I just kept doing it. And then finally it got to the point, once again, where it was so painful. It was like I would be around, and maybe some of you can relate to this in your own life in a whole different kind of circumstance, but I would be around these parents and I would be I felt so shallow, I felt so superficial, I felt so fake, really. And I had it all justified because, well, you know, this is for my children, I'm doing this for my kids. And then I would leave and I would feel so awful. I felt just gutted. It was so self-destructive, really. And then I would have to recover and get back to the real me in my professional world. So finally, I realized what I had been doing to myself once again. And I said, you know what? Okay, the first time it was like a total no. This time I thought, I rationalized it was okay because I thought, well, I'm myself over here, so it's okay if I'm not myself over here. Well, that turned out not to be true either. So basically it took me, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years to fully come out of that repression, that self-imposed repression once again. So in conclusion, what I want to share with you about all of this is that it absolutely isn't worth it. It's really, you know, it's really a very black and white situation where you are either willing to be yourself 100%, in which case the door opens for you to live your purpose in this life. To whatever extent you repress yourself, to whatever extent you pretend to be something you're not, you're repressing your power, you're repressing your energy, your true intelligence, your light, your love, everything that you came here to do. And I know this is a really tough situation because we are so programmed on this planet to do that to ourselves. We think it's okay because so many people do this, right? So the reason I wanted to share this story is I was hoping that, because my story is pretty extreme, it's pretty outlandish, but it's also very simple. So maybe if you can see the difference, because think about this. What if I had decided with those parents, what if I had decided, you know what, this is going to be my life. I'm just going to pretend all the time so that I don't offend anyone, I don't upset anyone. Do you think under those conditions I could have done anything that I came here to do in terms of my true purpose to contribute and facilitate spiritual awakening, personal growth, all of that from being me, who I really am? Well, the answer, of course, is no. And that would have led to a completely unfulfilled life. Now, I will say, and I'm sure you guys know this, it takes courage to come forward and really be who you are. But it is so worth it because the cost of not doing so is so incredibly high. Ask yourself, notice whatever area in your life you are repressing your real expression, your true authenticity, what you really want to say, where you feel you don't have a voice, because this really is about having a voice, right? If you just go to a really introspective place, you will actually be able to feel what that's doing to your energy, what that's doing to your expression. You don't have to live that way. See if there is some part of your life where you can make some positive changes and begin to let go, begin to free yourself. Don't try to take it on all at once, but if there is some part of your life where you can start to just come out a little bit more, be more real with yourself, with other people, more expressive, more authentic. Try it little by little and notice how different you feel. Notice how wonderful it feels when you free yourself. It is completely transformational. Because here's the thing, everyone. You see, people tell me all the time that they find it so difficult to make the positive changes in life that they really want to make. And a lot of times the reason for that difficulty is because of this self-imposed repression and a fear of being who you really are. So that's why I encourage you to experiment a little bit with yourself, let go, free yourself more, watch how that affects your energy, watch how more of you comes forth, because you know what? That real you, that infinite being that you truly are, has amazing intelligence. You have so much light in you, you have so much love, you have wisdom, you have intuition, you have these amazing faculties that you can begin to free up, allow your energy to flow, contribute to the world, and live your purpose and be who you really are. So I hope my story and this message has inspired you, has been thought-provoking, and has motivated you to go within and make those positive changes within yourself. Unleash your inner being, your true wisdom, who you really are, and live the purposeful life that you truly came here to live. Now, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it out with anyone who you think would benefit. I would be most thankful if you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so that you get notified every time I produce a new video, which will be at least every week. I'm sending you all so much love, light, loads of positive energy. Have a beautiful day. Namaste.